Councillor Paul Smith, substituting for Councillor Natalie Summers from St Anne's and St John's Ward.
Councillor Darius Laws, substituting for Councillor Lewis Barber, and I'm from Rural North Ward.
Councillor Martin Parsons, Mersey and Pyfleet Ward.
Councillor Alaki Akiyemi, Grinstead Ward.
Councillor Faith Smalls, Old Heath, The Hive and Rowhedge.
Councillor Amy Kirkby-Taylor for Castle Ward.
Councillor Andrew Ellis, Markstay and Layer Ward.
Councillor Rees-Smithson, Tiptree Ward.
Ben Plummer, Senior Planning Policy Officer.
Simon Cairns, Joint Head of Planning.
Shirley Blackaby, Principal Planning Policy Officer.
Rachel Forkin, Principal Planning Policy Officer.
Sandra Scott, Place Strategy Manager.
Karen Syrett, Joint Head of Planning.
Richard Clifford, Democratic Services Manager.
Thank you all. Just to confirm the substitutions, we've got Councillor Smith replacing, substituting for Councillor Summers, and Councillor Laws for Councillor Barber. We also have apologies from Councillor Sean Kelly, but I don't think he's being subbed for tonight. Item 3 is urgent items. Are there any, Richard?
There are no urgent items.
No urgent items. Thank you very much. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Are there any from any members of the panel? No. All good. Item 5 is minutes. Can I invite the committee to approve the minutes of the meetings of the 7th of May and the 21st of May 2025, which are in the pack? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Which moves us on very quickly to item 6, which is general have your say. I think we've just got 2 speakers for us tonight. And the first is Norma Dinny-Wheel. Norma, if you would come forward. You have 3 minutes. A bell will sound after 2 to let you know they've got a minute left, and then when your 3 minutes are up. And the time will start when you press the button in front of you and the red light will come on. You press the silver button. Thanks.
This is to represent my area's desire for our area to be included in the local wildlife sites. And I want to start with a quote from the Natural History Museum. Centuries of farming, building and industry have made the UK one of the most nature-depleted countries in Europe. Extensive agricultural lands and road networks, in combination with other factors, have reduced the wildlife in the UK to a point hardly seen elsewhere. While the UK has made some gains, natural landscapes have been so heavily degraded over decades and centuries that we are simply not doing enough to turn back the tide. And a quote from the Joint Nature Conservation Committee data from 2023. Farmland birds show greatest decline. Farmland bird populations have decreased by nearly 2/3 since 1970 and 9% in the last 5 years. Woodland birds show worrying recent decline. Woodland bird populations have shown accelerated decline in the last decade, declining by 10% since 2018. I have walked the footpaths between Bullock Wood, Shaw's Farm, Surrey Brook and Welshwood Nature Reserve for more than half of my life, so I'm very familiar with the area, and I've walked it in all weathers. I'm not a wildlife expert, but nature gives me so much pleasure. Over the years, this area has avoided the urbanisation that has occurred in other parts of Colchester, and for the past 40 years, I've been able to enjoy the local wildlife, particularly skylarks that nest in all the surrounding fields and can be seen and heard from early spring right through to summer. Over time, I've seen flocks of yellowhammers, goldfinch, long-tailed tits, swallows and house martins. Sadly, I haven't seen or heard any swifts this year. In winter, we get an extra influx of starlings along with fieldfares and sometimes waxwings. Bullock Wood hosts tree sparrows, chiffchaffs, wrens, blue and great tits, blackbirds, thrushes, green and greater spotted woodpeckers and blackcaps. A regular sight in the summer, hordes of chaser and hawker dragonflies that patrol the hedgerows and tree lines out at Bullock Wood and the lane down to Shaw's Farm. It needs checking out, but a local resident believes there are bats in the farm buildings next to Sir John's cottages, and they have been there for several decades. We now have regular apex predators like buzzards and kestrels hunting over the whole area, and in very recent times I filmed a red kite over the field adjacent to Green Lane. A regular kestrel hunts along the farm track. They are indicator species that suggest a reasonably well-balanced ecosystem. Furthermore, for the past few years, wide strips of wildflowers have been planted at the edges of the fields on the St John's side of Harwich Road, which has increased the insect population and therefore benefited the entire food chain. Ironic then that taxpayers' money used to enhance biodiversity will be wasted if the area is developed. Breaking up the corridor that allows wildlife to move freely between Bullock, Sallery Brook and Welshwood Nature Reserve would also be incredibly detrimental. Finally, I want to address the benefits to the local community. Many residents use the path.
You can carry on.
Okay, thank you. The footpaths regularly. It encourages social interaction, exercise and the chance to appreciate nature. All of these things are incredibly invaluable to our mental health and physical well-being. By contrast, large high-density housing estates can be isolating. Urban sprawl can destroy any existing sense of identity and community. St John's and Welshwood are better places to live because of this access to nature. I cannot adequately say that in 3 minutes what this means to me. Nature enriches us. We are connected to and rely on it. Nature is our heart and soul, and it's no exaggeration to say our species cannot thrive without it. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. We'll let the officers respond. I was a bit lenient there because we haven't got many speakers tonight and the agenda isn't particularly long tonight. But thank you, that was very interesting. I'm going to ask Sandra if you'd like to respond to Norma's comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you've described some very valuable qualities that apply to the area of land that you're referring to, and I think I'd like to reassure you that in the event that the site you're describing progresses through the local plan, then for site allocation through the local plan process, all of those factors will be taken into account in response to the relevant evidence and informed by master planning and relevant safeguards placed in policy. So I think we've heard everything you've said, and in the event that we progress in the future through the plan with that site, then you know, all of those things will be are relevant considerations and will come through various pieces of evidence that are being developed as part of the plan.
Thanks, Sandra. You have another minute, Norma, if you want to use it.
Yeah, I just want to say.
If you could use the microphone, thanks.
I apologise for getting emotional. It's just that when you become so bonded to an area, to think of it changing, because I watch it all the time. I've taken films of the skylarks, you know, films of the red kites and the buzzards, and I've watched them. I mean, I remember seeing the buzzards about 15 years ago and being so excited to see them returning. And they do use the farm track down to Sallery Brook and along as like a corridor. So I think that's extremely important, not to isolate any of those areas.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming tonight. It's nice to hear from you and important about the wildlife. Thank you very much. Our second Have Your Say speaker is Melina. Melina, if you'd like to come forward, you have, like Norma, 3 minutes. A bell will sound to 2 and then again to stop you after 3. The time will start when you start speaking.
Good evening. In a previous meeting, I had asked the planning committee to dismiss the plan that was submitted for the Holy Trinity Church. This is because, as I explained, the bid that I am supporting had been mistreated, and I am still fighting to put things right, following the relevant complaint procedures to date. I was told during that meeting that the decision would be about the fabric of the building and would not be linked with a particular bid, but that was not so apparently, as the next day the council announced through the papers that the partnership with St Helena Hospice was approved by the planning committee and would go ahead. In my Have Your Say then, I had stated that the plans suggested were incomplete with regards to our bid, which would like the building to be divided in 3 separate parts. One to be used as a temple, a common place of prayer for all denominations, one to be used for training and meetings, and another as a communal kitchen for those in temporary accommodation who have nowhere to cook. Our, the Friends of St. Martin's Voluntary Group, BID, combines preservation of heritage and modern community use. The current elected BID will turn the building into a cafe and retail shop according to the articles in the local papers. There is no connection between this faction and the historic heritage of the building. After the end of my have your say last time in the planning committee, I was told that the planning committee was not the appropriate team to look at the unjust dismissal of our bid, but the scrutiny committee refused us the opportunity to have your say with the excuse that we had already addressed the matter in other meetings. So my question today is, which is please the correct committee to address the request for review of this decision?
Thank you, Melina. Well, we'll certainly give you the opportunity to have your say, and I'm going to ask Richard Clifford to give you the answer about which may be the correct committee or how you're going to could take this forward. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. The matters that you've raised with the committee and that you're concerned about are executive matters that mean decisions essentially taken under the executive powers of the council by the leader of the council, and the cabinet would be the right to address. I understand that, as you point out in your submission, that the matters you've raised are subject to a complaint, and that it wouldn't be appropriate for us to comment further whilst that complaint is progressing through our systems. Okay?
Thank you. So the cabinet is the right place for you, but you have another minute if you wish to use it.
I am a little bit unsure because I had spoken with the council. I actually thought it was the planning committee. I didn't know it's a different committee, never mind. I was told by Councillor Mark Ocher, which is the council ward, that the scrutiny meeting reviews decisions. So I was perplexed when I received the response by Mr. Law that it was not I shouldn't be speaking in that committee. And for the cabinet, I'll have it in mind, but there is an ongoing official complaint against the leader of the council from myself, so I wouldn't address this matter until this is addressed or resolved somehow.
Okay, well, you've heard what Richard said. The advice is to come to cabinet.
I'm just using my 1 minute.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's all the Have Your Say speakers we have this evening. So we'll move on to the next item, item 7, which is our main item on the menu tonight, and that's the local plan update. We've got no visiting councillors or anybody having your say on this item, so I'll ask Sandra to introduce it, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. This report provides an update on the work on the local plan, including the evidence and topic papers and other updates on 5-year housing land supply and designated rural areas. The additional evidence work for the local plan is progressing well, with initial draft reports on transport and infrastructure to be provided and reviewed by relevant officers over the next weeks. On transport, the government's announcement on the 8th of July to cancel the A12 widening scheme was not news that anybody was hoping for. However, the transport modelling work has included a scenario that reflected this position. Essex County Highways and National Highways were both invited to attend this meeting this evening. In the event they may have been able to help answer any questions, but unfortunately neither were able to do so. Paragraph 5.7 of the report sets out a short statement from Essex County Council in respect of this announcement in relation to the local plan. And essentially, Essex County Council is currently evaluating whether the transport impacts of growth without the A12 widening can be managed through appropriate mitigation measures over the planned period up to 2041. It's acknowledged that an alternative approach to Junction 25 will be necessary to accommodate development growth, and this will need further exploring. Work is ongoing to understand the implications of the A12 cancellation on the preferred options local plan and transport impacts on site allocations, and Essex County Council remain committed to working in partnership with the council on this matter, and this will all sort of flow out in the reporting on the transport evidence that is progressing. National Highways have been engaged throughout the transport work and will continue to input and feedback throughout the work on the local plan. So just on infrastructure, paragraph 5.9 of the report summarises the progress on the infrastructure audit and delivery plan. And key updates have been provided to the consultants from most of the statutory infrastructure providers. Where costings are not available, AECOM have advised that their internal cost consultant team can fill this gap using nationally recognised benchmarking. And this is a widely accepted approach, particularly in respect of longer-term National Health Service planning. On viability, the consultants are updating the benchmark land values and other updates as required. And they're also carrying out high-level testing of the strategic sites over the summer. It's anticipated that the whole plan viability will progress in line with the programme, with initial reporting expected during September and October. Just on other evidence, I'm pleased to confirm that the water cycle study has now been finalised and will be ready to publish on the local plan website this week. Unfortunately, we didn't get it quite in time to publish in time for this meeting. The local wildlife sites partial review has been drafted and consultation has been carried out on that, and a final will be issued once complete. This includes further survey work that was recommended on a number of local wildlife sites that have been recommended as having the potential to be extended. Work on the next phase of the Heritage Impact Assessment has been commenced following appointment of consultants to carry out this work. And the committee will recall that further botanical and invertebrate surveys work for Middlewick Ranges was postponed last year due to, in the spring, due to adverse weather. The final invertebrate surveys were completed in May this year, and the final report is due any day, and we anticipate this will be ready to publish hopefully later this week. The local plan committee members and the key interested parties and Natural England will be notified when the supporting data, when this report and the supporting data is available on the website. Just an update on topic papers. As we've referred to before, officers are preparing a series of topic papers on a range of topics covering all the relevant issues in the local plan. Published last week, topic papers included employment, net zero and environment. And this week, alongside the water cycle study, we will also be ready to publish a topic paper on water. And during August and September, we expect to publish further papers as they're ready. Just now turning to housing land supply, we thought it would be useful to update the committee on where we are with that. Paragraph 5.19 of the report provides an overview of the five-year housing land supply position. The statement will be published soon, but it's anticipated that this will just demonstrate 5 years. But it has to be recognised that in February 2026, this will need to be based on the higher figure, based on the standard method, which will highly likely mean that, that at that time we will go into deficit for the housing land supply. And finally, on designated rural areas, members will recall that an application was submitted in October to designate 25 parish areas within the city area of Colchester that met the criteria to designate rural areas in accordance with the Housing Act. Following ministerial approval and being laid before Parliament, it officially came into force on the 2nd of August. This is good news as it facilitates delivery for affordable housing in the qualifying rural communities, allowing the council to seek affordable housing provision on housing developments of 5 units or more as opposed to 10, which it is in all other areas. That's all from me. The team were happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, for that comprehensive report and for the report itself. The introduction is very helpful. I've got Councillor Smith who wants to kick off with questions.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two areas that I'd like to question on. The first one relates to the Speaker and local wildlife sites. She points very clearly to the extremely good wildlife that's around the Bullockwood site of special scientific interest. In addition to what she states, there are also protected species habitats adjacent to or very close to that site. And there's also significant other wildlife in the area. I want to know why it wasn't included in the list of the 8 sites, or what's the scope for getting it included, and how those 8 sites were selected.
Shelley, are you going to address that one, please?
Yes, I'll answer that one. So we commissioned a local wildlife sites review. It was carried out by ecologists from land use consultants. And because of the number of local wildlife sites within Colchester, it wasn't possible to ask them to review every single one of those. So with them, we agreed that they would look at all local wildlife sites, so existing local wildlife sites, within 50 metres of preferred allocations in the emerging preferred options local plan. So LUC surveyed all of those sites and prepared a draft report, which officers have seen. And as Sandra explained, we carried out a technical consultation. We sent that draft report to Essex Wildlife Trust and Colchester Natural History Society. Now, as part of their work, the ecologists from LUC recommended that 8 local wildlife sites may be suitable for extension. So that requires further survey work, which will take place in September. So it was focused on existing local wildlife sites rather than looking at additional sites.
It seems strange to me, you said within 50 metres of a preferred location. Am I not right in thinking there's 2,000 houses being suggested for the sites by Bullockwood? So surely we should be assessing whether it meets the criteria. It may not meet the criteria, but if it hasn't been looked at, surely that's unfair.
This survey was a review of the local wildlife sites, whereas Bullockwood is a triple SI, a site of special scientific interest. So that's why it didn't fall within the scope of this. In addition to the local wildlife sites review, we also commissioned a biodiversity assessment. The biodiversity assessment, there were several elements to this, but one of them was to assess all sites that were put forward as part of the call for sites and passed the first sieve. So the site that you mentioned was subject to assessment as part of that.
Thank you. Before you make your second point, Councillor Smith, well, I think you might have done. Can I, on behalf of the Deputy Chair and myself, and I should have said this at the beginning, say, and I know why you've raised it tonight because Norma raised it, and it's fair enough, but the Local Plan Committee has got to look at the Colchester City area. We cannot, and I think we've found this over the last, since I've been chairing the committee, it's very easy to address ward issues, but you can do that in a separate place. Ward issues are very important, but we have got to look at the whole of the City Council area. If we're just going to concentrate on ward matters, then we're not going to get very far, are we? Because we've got to look at the housing needs and the needs of wildlife sites and all the other areas of sites across the whole city. We can't just look at our own ward, and we would plead with you that please let's open our minds and look at the broad areas that we know we've got to find sites for housing and sites for wildlife and sites for everything. But please, if I can make a plea to the committee, can we broaden our horizons when we're at Local Plan Committee? Of course, in your ward work, you are entitled to make representations on behalf of groups. Councillor Smith, do carry on.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little concerned that there seems to be some bias in the selection of these sites. Because looking at the list, there are eight sites. 6 are south of the river. 1, Simberley Meadows, is on the river, and only 1 north of the river. That seems very strange to me, looking on a culture-wide perspective. And it seems when a site that appears to meet a lot of the criteria hasn't been included for some reason is very strange. And there may be other sites that are missing here. It does seem to me that we need to have a look at this one, and if there has been an assessment of this site, I certainly would like to see it, because possibly it may be inaccurate if, well, what we're hearing about the amount of wildlife there, that it wasn't included. And
Can
if
I
this
ask
site
that
is
you-
wrong, others are wrong.
Can I ask that you temper your language? If you're going to accuse the officers of bias, I'm sure you won't want that in the minutes, but that is what you said. So do you want to rephrase what you said?
I said there appears to have been some bias in the selection of sites. I don't believe the sites were selected by the officers. That was what I heard.
We can explain to you how.
The ecology group looked at the sites, but that was where I was suggesting that it does look strange, would you agree, that you've got 6 sites north and south and 1 north?
Who wants to answer that? Sandra?
The 8 sites are the sites that the work that LUC have come up with that are recommended for extension. All existing local wildlife sites that are within, 50 metres of any proposed allocated site were part of the assessment. So the 8 that are listed in this report are those that work
maybe we should get someone up
Is that
just in
coming
case.
through, Gillian?
Fine, okay, we'll carry on. Thank you very much. Gillian waved her magic wand and all was well. Who else, other speakers can I see, please? Councillor Ellis.
I'll be very brief, Chairman. That is working much better now, isn't it? Further away. Topic papers were spoken about. I thought we were going to get topic papers presented to committee, if I'm honest. But you said that you've already published them. Are you publishing them on the planning portal on the website, or
They're published
there's
on
nothing
the
going on? Yeah.
published on the local plan website, and all members of the committee were sent a link on Friday.
Okay, sorry. I've asked neighbours on both sides of me, both of who have said they haven't seen them. So Faye's got hers. So I'll recheck. I've had the Five Parishes show this weekend. So actually which we've been preparing for the last week. So I apologise if I've missed them, but I hadn't seen them.
They were delivered. Trying to find it. Friday afternoon. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, if you have a trawl back, Andrew, then I'm sure you'll come across it.
I will go hunting for them. And just a quickie, because we've talked about wildlife sites now. 50 metres seems incredibly short distance to me. Is that a statutory number or just an arbitrary figure that's been plucked out of the air? As someone that, I mean, you'll find out in my mayoral year how much I care about wildlife. I just find that an extraordinarily short distance from a site to be looking at, to be honest. 50 metres, a site will have an impact on wildlife far greater or far larger than 50 metres. I mean, far larger than 50 metres. So I'm just interested if that is a figure that we've used. I've written the September down, question mark, and I'm trying to remember why. That's really frustrating. That's really frustrating. As a matter of interest, where would we be now? I know we've delayed, and you're coming back to us. Is it 10th of October or 10th of November? November. So, and the work that's being done now, obviously all of the work that had been done on transport prior to February had been done modelling based on the A12 scheme going ahead. Since the delay that we have had in, according to the portfolio holder at full council, she was saying that work is now being done or has been being done on a non-A12 scheme. So we're going to have, all the modelling will now be done as if the A12 widening wasn't going ahead. So we'll have that for November, or are we going to have that in this paper that's due imminently?
Yeah, that will be available in time for November. There will be a briefing that is offered when that information is available and the full transport report is out. It's been done in stages, and there's an element of review by officers to just sort of check technical details in order for them to continue to finalise the report. So there won't be an interim report published any above and beyond what's already been published. It's all leading towards the report that will be available before November the 10th, and there will be a briefing on that in advance of that offered with the relevant technical experts available to help with that.
Just come back. So what's the transport modelling work that we're going to be seeing that you've been working on, that we're seeing imminently, if it doesn't include any of the A12 scheme remodelling?
I think the reference to the imminent is just draft reporting that is developing the final report, and that is without the A12. We'll include modelling the scenarios without the A12 and the mitigation requirements that need to be considered in the light of that. Following the additional work that this committee asked for included the scenario where we could be in the position that we now find ourselves in. So that work is is being done and will be available to support provide the evidence for the plan when the plan's considered again in November.
Okay.
I think what I'm trying to, the modelling outputs are technical information, and that needs to be reviewed by other technical experts in order to then move on and do the next bit that looks at all the detailed mitigation.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I've misunderstood. I thought when it says it's due imminently, I thought that was something that we were going to be seeing when we've been talking about topic papers and what have you. I thought that was something that we'd see. It's obviously not, but it'll be supporting evidence that's used in November. Thank you.
Councillor Smithson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick point. There seems to be two different sets of topic papers on the local plan website. The ones from 2021, which are undated, and the new ones. Can we date them and put them all together, please?
We'll date them, but we'll make it clear that the topic papers that we're publishing now as a date of 2025 relate to this local plan. The topic papers dated 2021 will relate to the examination and the local plan that is adopted. We'll make sure that is clear on the website, but the topic papers that everybody should be referring to and that we're publishing are on the local plan review website and under the sort of current plan, but we'll make sure that's clear. But the ones you should be looking at 2025, certainly.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Topic papers. One of the frustrations I've had sitting on this committee is that we do lots of things that seem to be ticking national boxes, but there are some aspects of the local area that just seem to get missed and fall between the cracks there. And there seems to be some real potential in these topic papers to actually have some specific policies that would address those. Now, looking first of all at the net zero topic paper, section 2.5, I just quickly read through this for the benefit of those online. We're experiencing some of the impacts in Essex of hotter summers, water supply pressures, more frequent intense weather events, number of homes at risk of flooding could double by 2050. And then on page 8, it refers to the National Planning Policy Framework, and it says the planning system should support transition to net zero by 2050 and take full account of all climate change impacts, including overheating, water scarcity, storm and flood risk, coastal change. It should help shape places in ways that contribute to radical reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, minimise vulnerability and improve resilience. It would be really good as an outcome of this local plan, and I know everyone is under intense pressure, if we had some policies that really address those as planning policies. Two in particular. One is a presumption in favour of farm reservoirs. We have a significant agricultural area. We are one of the driest areas in the country, 700 millimetres of rainfall. In a sense, this should be a bit of a no-brainer. Second one, can we look in terms of planning policy at wildfire risks, which have significantly increased in Essex over the last 3 years? And thirdly, going on to the environment topic paper, great description of the local environment on page 8. What's missing though is the fact that North East Essex has got vastly more islands than any other area of England. And in the Colchester City Council area, we've actually got 5 islands, 2 of which are built on currently. A third one used to be built on. I'm tempted to ask the place strategy manager if she'd like to name them all, but I won't put her on the spot this meeting. One of those islands is already 20% built up. Nature conservation we've talked about. There is a huge scientific literature on the importance of marine islands. It would be great to have an islands planning policy. Thank you.
Karen?
The topic papers aren't the place to include policies. Topic papers bring everything else together. I think these are longer than I would have liked, but it goes to show how much information there is to bring together and try and set out in a more manageable and readable format. Local plan is the place for policies, and when we consult, then representations can be made to suggest new policies, including, if it's appropriate, farm reservoirs. I'm intrigued how you think a planning policy can tackle wildfire risk. If there's something that we can do, then do share it, because, following a consultation, then we may be in a position to do something. And the same with an island policy. If it's, what sets them apart, what justifies an island, and what would that policy contain?
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, by all means.
Thank you. So wildfires creates a very significant risk in terms of wildfire, because there's no retreat from it in terms of emergency evacuation. Islands policy, what sets them apart? One is biodiversity, because biodiversity and habitat on an island is generally the whole island. Secondly, if you look at islands around the world, classic example is the capital island of the Maldives, 100% built up. We ought to be saying, what is the maximum percentage that we would see as reasonable for a built-up area in an island? That would be one very simple practical out.
It's the first time I've ever heard Colchester and the Maldives at local planning committee, but perhaps you'd like to respond, Karen? Well, you may well think that. I couldn't possibly comment.
Yeah, I've been, but I didn't realise it was 100% built up. In terms of, I've lost my bearings now. Obviously we do have, I'm thinking closer to home, the UK, and, we are an island. So the National Planning Policy Framework provides policies at a national level that addresses things like habitat and densities, and there's no specific requirement to have a limit on built-up areas. And different parts, I think there's some information online about how different parts of England and the UK are built up. I think last time we looked for Colchester, it was something like 17% overall. It's probably increased slightly since then, because that was a few years ago now. But then at a local level, we have policies covering habitats and biodiversity and things. We have coastal protection belt. So I think we're covered, but, through the consultation, when it happens, then some of these things might come out, and if appropriate, like I say, we can certainly add policies or amend policies.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Councillor Parsons. Before I bring Councillor Alice back in, I've got Councillor Law. I'll let you come back after anybody else wants to speak. Darren.
Thanks, Chairman. I should keep it quite straightforward. I like this hyper-local chat. Going beyond the MPPF and statutory obligations sounds good where we can, where there's capacity to do it. So under 5.15, I note and welcome that consultants have been appointed to prepare a heritage impact assessment. And I'm just thinking ahead into the future as we get our heads around potential local government reorganisation, what that will look like around policy convergence. How can we ensure here, through, I'm just a tourist here, so forgive me, how can you ensure that Colchester will have that hyperlocal focus, that will go beyond the MPPF obligations where it comes to, for example, archaeology? So, there might be other authorities that have not experienced as much Roman archaeology that we have here, and who won't have the localised knowledge that many around this table have got. And I just would hope that, we are in a situation in the future where there is rigorous policy beyond statutory obligations to ensure that, You know, we do not pour concrete over Roman mosaics, for example.
Sandra?
I think essentially through the evidence. The evidence the MPPF prescribes what the evidence needs to cover, but the evidence looks at the local detail and where the evidence is appropriate, we can justify policy. So I think essentially that's the simple answer.
Thanks. Thanks, Councillor Laws. Anybody else before I bring Councillor Ellis back in? Andrew?
So it was just a question hadn't been answered, actually, Chairman. When I had asked, obviously Sandra came back to me on the A12 and widening scheme and transport topic papers. It was the 50 metres designation for wildlife sites. And then I've got just another one to that is, how do people have a local wildlife site designated? What is the process for making that happen? And when would it happen? Would it be during the consultation Reg 18, or is there another process for people? But I know people locally who think that they've got one. I wonder how they actually put it forward to us to make it designated as a local wildlife site. Thank you.
So we're having a bit of a
50 metres. Where did that come from?
50 metres, and how do you get one? Jelly?
I can answer the 50 metres and maybe make a start on your other question, and then Sandra or Karen might want to add something to that. So the 50 metres, that was recommended by LUC ecologists that carried out the partial review. They carry out this sort of work for lots of other councils, so we took their advice, and that's where the 50 metre came from. Okay. So in terms of local wildlife sites, so there's criteria for local wildlife sites, and that's why the sites that I mentioned that the ecologists suggested could be extended, the reason why further survey work will take place in September is they need to go out. They were on site, saw the adjacent land, thought the adjacent land would meet local wildlife site criteria, but need to go out to survey it to confirm if it would. I did mention as well, and Sandra did in her presentation, that we carried out a technical consultation on the draft report. We sent that to Essex Wildlife Trust and Colchester Natural History Society. Colchester Natural History Society, in their comments back to us, they did suggest a few additional sites that they think should be designated as local wildlife sites because they think it meets that criteria. And we will be asking LUC to have a look at those sites that they've recommended when they go out to survey in September.
I've still got my microphone on, sorry.
Yes.
So you've partially answered that. So the criteria for a local wildlife site, where's that publicised from our point of view? And how do our residents see that, and how do they therefore then, I get it that a local wildlife organisation have obviously put something forward, but how do residents who recognise something put that forward, and how do they see what would meet the criteria? I'm assuming we must publish that somewhere, or is it nationally designated what those criteria would be?
Jelly?
I think the criteria was set many years ago at county level. Local wildlife sites used to be called SINC, and I'm trying to remember what that stands for. Sites of Importance for Nature.
Conservation.
Thank you. So, Essex. Okay, Councillor Kirkby-Taylor.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to talk on specifically the areas that were mentioned by the resident, Norma, sorry, I didn't catch her name earlier. So I've been looking at the local plan map, and it looks like Kilnwood is a local wildlife site in it. Bullockwood is a SSSI designated local wildlife site. Welshwood is a local wildlife site. Salary Brook looks to be a combination of local wildlife site and flood zone. And there isn't actually anything earmarked for development in that kind of band apart from the garden community which has its own set of protections in that band. The closest development I can see on that we are anticipating is at the Severals Industrial Estate, redeveloping that and the tennis court, unless someone can tell me that there's something else in that area that I couldn't find. I couldn't find anything on the map.
Councillor Smith is champing at the bit, but I think there is another site, Karen, isn't there?
I was very happy to hear that
no.
news.
There's nothing designated on the map.
But in the draft plan there is a site, isn't there? Can you enlighten Councillor Kirkby-Taylor to where that is, Sandra, please?
Yeah, there is a site that's I can't remember the number, PP, but whatever, North East Colchester, that is in that vicinity. That's in the draft. The plan that went to local plan committee on the 17th of February includes a proposed allocation for an extensive area for up to 2,000 dwellings, which includes land in the vicinity of that area. Depends what map you might be looking at, because obviously that is it's public positioning on the website is on the committee papers and nothing more than that at the moment, because it's yet to proceed to consultation.
Does that help?
So it isn't on the proposals map?
Not for the adopted plan, no. It is only on the map that's attached to the papers that is part of that local plan committee report for the draft local plan.
Okay, yeah, no, it was there, but I'm sure you'll find it, Amy, when yeah, it was there on both the draft plans that went to February and whenever the other one was, like May, was it? May, 7th of May, yeah, that's right. Okay, any more questions to officers? Yes, Vanessa.
Thank you very much. It's just a final question, I guess. We've had some topic papers already. I just wanted to get a handle on, just for my benefit, what we are left to expect. So we've got water cycle study and a topic paper on that as well, and some more viability, transportation, local wildlife. Is there anything else?
Yes, there's a number of others. I'll try and remember the list. I haven't got it in front of me, but there'll be one on water that accompany, or doesn't accompany, but includes assistance to interpret the water cycle study. It also refers to other water issues in the strategic flood risk assessment. Transport will come once we have the evidence form completed that's being undertaken. There'll be one on infrastructure, which will likewise follow with that information, and the same for viability. We're also intending to do a topic paper on retail and town centres, site allocations or site selection, kind of about sites, spatial strategy, healthy places. Is that all of them? I should get listed up really, but they're the broad range. I think healthy places will kind of bring in a range of different topics, but that's the breadth of them. And then if there's any I've missed, then there might be other topics if they're specific to, helpful to evidence that we've had produced.
Thanks. I know there's a lot of work going on, so thank you.
Okay, any more for any more? No. Good. The recommendation is just to note progress. Can we note progress and also thank the officers for the work that they've done so far on the local plan update, please? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. And wow, under an hour. Declare the meeting closed very quickly. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight.